Watch this single coffee cup. You can open one cafe with ease, but within months, hundreds of identical cups will saturate your immediate operating radius. Opening a coffee shop requires very little initial capital and relies on highly accessible commercial technology. You sign a lease, buy a machine, and you are immediately operational. That low barrier to entry creates a mathematically hostile reality. When a market is easy to enter, it guarantees an infinite and continuous supply of local competitors fighting for the exact same customer base. This diagram maps out Porter's 5 forces. It is a strategic management tool we use to deconstruct the specific pressure vectors that destroy profit margins in an open market. Long-term survival in this market depends on the deliberate engineering of structural defenses that protect the firm from its own accessibility. Without those defenses, the business exists in a red ocean, a competitive environment so dense and combative that profit margins are systematically bled down to zero by default. To understand how to protect a firm, we have to measure the specific pressure coming from the bottom and the top of the supply chain. The very accessibility that makes a cafe an attractive entrepreneurial venture is the exact vulnerability that threatens to bankrupt it. This layout maps the first force, the threat of new entrants. Independent operators flood the market because of low capital requirements, while massive corporate chains dominate through economies of scale and national distribution networks. To counter this constant influx, a successful firm has to build intangible assets. Constructing a highly specific brand identity or a proprietary mobile reward system artificially raises the entry barrier, making it difficult for the shop across the street to steal your regulars. The second vector of pressure is the bargaining power of suppliers. A cafe's operation relies entirely on external inputs: green coffee beans, dairy, and commercial espresso equipment. This photograph shows the base reality of global coffee production. For standard beans and conventional milk, the buyer holds the leverage. These are high-volume commodities, meaning a cafe owner can instantly switch between dozens of competing wholesale distributors to secure a lower price. That dynamic flips entirely in the specialty market. If a cafe's brand relies on rare, highly specific flavor profiles, the specialty roaster holds a near monopoly over that input, giving the supplier immense power to dictate terms and squeeze the cafe's margins. Look at this harvest operation. To neutralize supplier leverage, top-tier cafes implement partial vertical integration. They buy their own commercial roasting facilities or sign direct trade contracts with the farms, physically taking control of the supply chain to lock in their unit costs. A cafe without integration or scale is trapped in a vice, constantly undercut by a stream of new local rivals, while simultaneously paying premium prices to high-leverage specialty suppliers. This dashboard illustrates the third force: buyer power. In the retail coffee sector, the consumer dictates the terms of survival. The core products, an Americano or a standard latte, are heavily standardized across the industry. Because the liquid itself rarely varies in a way the average consumer can detect, buyers become intensely sensitive to price fluctuations. This creates a frictionless environment. Armed with GPS maps and public reviews, a consumer can locate, evaluate, and walk into a competing business in under 2 minutes. The cost of switching loyalties is literally zero. Neutralizing buyer power requires decoupling your price from the liquid in the cup. The firm must offer non-price value that forces the consumer to pay for the physical and emotional experience. We see this shift towards specialized craft in this vintage espresso machine. Elite barista service, highly curated interior design, and rare brewing methods create a tangible atmosphere that a competitor cannot instantly duplicate. You establish a switching cost by making the atmosphere irreplaceable. If the customer values the specific environment of your shop, they lose that value the moment they cross the street to save 50 cents. This table maps out the fourth force, the threat of substitutes. A substitute is not another coffee shop. It is any alternative method a consumer can use to fulfill the specific function your business provides. This image of a mid-century office break room shows exactly what a functional substitute looks like. If your cafe strictly sells caffeine supply, you are competing against cheap home brewing setups, convenience store energy drinks, and free corporate coffee machines. To survive the threat of ubiquitous caffeine, a cafe must execute functional expansion. It has to pivot away from being a mere beverage dispenser and evolve into a specialized hub that fulfills a complex social need. A business can install dedicated high-speed fiber internet and acoustic treatments to become a premium remote workspace, or it can host professional cupping classes to act as an educational hobby center. The most dangerous competitors to a standard cafe are the convenience of the customer's own kitchen, the local library, and the corporate break room. When you combine low entry barriers, powerful suppliers, frictionless consumers, and endless substitutes, you trigger the fifth and final force: extreme rivalry among existing competitors. This saturation causes a strict bifurcation in the market. The industry splits entirely between massive, low-cost volume giants and high-concept, premium specialty roasters. Any firm caught in the middle ground, charging premium prices for average coffee without a distinct identity, is mathematically doomed. They lack the scale to win a price war and the brand loyalty to justify their overhead. This vintage drive-in architecture illustrates the final survival mechanism, redefining the delivery model to create a niche. If direct rivalry is too intense, you physically restructure the business to avoid it. Modern operators execute this by launching ultra-high-speed commuter outposts with zero seating, or by restricting their entire menu to specialized vegan baking and single-origin micro-roasts. They stop fighting over the general coffee consumer. By retreating into an unoccupied niche, they establish a localized monopoly where the five forces are heavily muted. The structural reality of the coffee industry is severe. Due to rapid commoditization and minimal barriers to entry, the default trajectory of a new cafe is towards zero profitability. Escaping that trajectory is strictly an engineering problem. You have to manually intervene and alter the economic forces acting on your operation. Looking back at our vector map, a surviving firm projects a multifaceted shield. It uses vertical integration, distinct niche positioning, and high-friction customer experiences to physically block the vectors of competition. These interventions build a defensible moat. You accumulate proprietary assets and customer loyalties that are far too expensive and far too complex for a new independent entrant to replicate. A successful entrepreneur in this space acts as a structural architect, building a business with specific defenses the market cannot easily dismantle.